Hey, good morning, Lisa. How are you? You there, Lisa? Good morning, Lisa. How are you? Lisa, are you there? Well, we're going to get started anyway. So I just want to,
Sorry, just make sure. Apologies.
think we're good.
Just checking the audio settings.
Make sure. Yeah.
Cool.
Good to go?
Yep.
Awesome.
Good, man.
All righty. All righty. So I just want to thank everyone for coming on here on YouTube Live. I know we have a couple people watching from there. And Lisa, thank you always for joining us. Today we're going to talk about the mountain of you. It's the mindset of the best that eludes the rest. And in the past videos, we talked about a lot of different things. We talked about success mindset. We talked about how to get to your first million. We talked about how do you establish your brand, your $1 million brand, to get you where you need to be during your career, etc. In this, we're going to talk about the concept of climbing a mountain. When you start your millionaire brand, so to speak, if you're in the real estate business, it's taking yourself from 0 to 100, 100 to 1,000, 1,000 to 10,000 and beyond, etc. So in the mountain of you, what we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about self-identity lessons that you can use and how that kind of relates to your success in the real estate business and in your personal brand creation. We're going to answer the question, what is the mountain of you? So many people don't necessarily know what that is referring to. And then we're going to talk about the 4 fault lines on the mountain that are the 4 horsemen of mindset failure, basically, as well as the 5 most important minerals of your mountain, U, A, B, C, D. We'll get into that. But the reason I love using a mountain as a metaphor is one of the biggest obstacles, obviously, on planet Earth is to climb Mount Everest. And if you think of Mount Everest as your life, you can start to relate that dynamic to creating your highest potential, right? How many people have climbed Mount Everest? Very, very, very few. When you get to that 30,000 foot point on planet Earth, you're really looking down at everything in a sense of accomplishment because so many people die trying, so to speak. But why is it called the mountain of you? Well, the reason being is because a mountain is large, majestic, and powerful. It is a defined landscape. It is revered and respected. And a mountain in and of itself is very similar to our lives, right? It's difficult to climb. There's peaks and valleys over the long term. And getting to that top component takes you going up, going down, going sideways. It's a long, long journey. And the thing about a mountain, when you look at topography, is everything else moves around it, right? Water moves around it, vegetation, landscape. And that's exactly how I want you to think about your personal brand and your success is you're going in a certain direction. You're going to the top, right? But everything is going to be moving around you, so to speak, when you go into that. So the mountain of you is almost the same dynamic. When you think of your mind, we want you to be strong, confident, a person that knows what they stand for, and more importantly, a person that gets what they want in their business life and beyond. So your goal is to become a mountain. What does it mean to be the mountain of you? Well, like a physical mountain is imposing and directs everything in the area, the mountain of you represents you at the highest level of mental and physical play. At its highest height, the mountain of you is someone who expects to win, expects to get what they want, and who expects absolutely nothing less than 100% success and victory in your life. The mountain of you is a combination of mindset, success tactics that we've used. Lisa, are you on the call? Well,
Me,
Lisa's in
Lisa?
here. Oh,
Me,
Lisa.
Lisa?
Yes, how are
Hi.
you?
Good.
So, do you remember the last class we had when we had you identify those eight things in your life that were most important to you?
Yes.
What were your top three, Lisa?
My top three were physical, business, and family.
Okay, great. And the reason I ask those questions is when you look at you, and the reason this is described the mountain of you and why it's important is because when you look at physical, business, and family, we want you to be strong and powerful in those arenas, right? And so when you look at how a mountain works, right? There's a lot of pressure and time that's created to meld rock together, right? To create that landscape of success. But there are a few attributes that you might want to write down that create a mountain of success in those three areas. And I'll give them to you now, Lisa, so you can write them down. The first is clarity. You have to be very clear on the idea of who you are, what you bring to the table, and what you expect out of your life, right? And so I think it's really important to define what that means to you, right? I'd write that down when you have time. The second thing I would address to create that foundation of your own personal mountain is effectiveness. You don't want to waste time, right? There's a lot of things in our life that come into our life that doesn't give us what we want out of it. So to get your optimum level of output, you want to make sure that you put in the minimum level of input, right? It almost becomes habitual. So I would look at effectiveness in your life. The third thing I would look at is how often are you winning? When you look at your, let's say, morning routine, Lisa, do you feel like you're winning when you wake up in the morning, or do you feel that there's some anxiety and or, resilience?
Excellent question. Thank you. Um, yes, my mornings are really, really on point. And I've been going to a fitness, a Pure Barre class at 5:30 in the morning, and it's just has helped me. I just focus on everything that goes along with it. I love it.
Oh, that's
But
great.
so the first part of the morning is fine. Um, the where I kind of get caught up in it is a little bit later in the morning when I need to do some family things too, because the kids and everything, the grandkids, and so I will tend to say, oh, well, let me take care of this and then I'll come back to my work, my calls, and my other things. So that's where I kind of lose that focus.
Mm. Yeah, you hit on some good points because I think your morning routine in some way or another has to address all three of these things. When you wake up, you have to do something every single day that addresses you becoming more confident and more powerful in your physical, force. And then obviously your business, which you're doing working out, which is great. And I would do something every day in the morning. Like, for instance, one of the things I teach a lot of my agents is every single morning when I wake up and make myself a cup of coffee, I log on to my computer and the first thing that I do is pay down debt. I don't care if it's $5, $10, $15, whatever the amount. It's something that adds to my business and my future. But when you make it a daily habit, it gets you off on the right foot, so to speak, right? And then family, what I would think of doing too, since it's really important to you, is taking 5, 10 minutes in the morning and doing something consistently with your family every single morning, if that makes sense.
Is making them breakfast, getting them ready for school,
Yeah.
and making lunches, does that count?
Yeah. Is there interaction between them during that time?
Oh, yeah, because I live with my grandkids.
Good.
We are a military family, so my husband and I take care of the kids while there's deployments happening.
Well, that's great. Yeah, so that does count, which is great. The other thing I think we talked about briefly is winning. Do you feel like when you're waking up, you have a really strong mindset of consistently winning, or is it hard for you to feel like you have won throughout the day?
See, so you asked me, I'm going to tell you. Um, I feel many times that I haven't been, and
Mm.
I'm constantly doing like get back on track, swapping myself out of the negative, if you will. So yeah, keeping on track and not getting that discouraged from the business aspect um, is definitely one of the things that I need to keep my eye on the mark for that.
And in a way to do that, to start off in a small way, is focus on things that you can control. Like, were you on the call? I know you had a really good comment today on the call with Ari, on the clubhouse. And one of the things I think that you said that I really enjoyed was like, what do you do as far as staying positive and things of that nature? Can you re-ask the question? Do you remember what you asked him?
Yeah. Um, Firstly, I think that with the attraction side of our business, um, because what we have with EXP is so obvious, I asked, you know, and here he's a celebrity.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you go in your mind when you have people not seeing that it's a legacy that you can create, that the wealth that you can create on the real estate side, as far as the buying, listing and bringing in buyers and that type of thing. And people tell you, no, or they don't see it. Like, how do you buffer that, deflect that, come back to them? And I'm not a pushy person, and I don't like, hey, you're stupid to not see this, and
Right.
never, 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 never. That isn't my style anyway. But I just was wondering from his perspective, because, and you, Michael, too, because of who you are, like where, like, and to see your success, like, how can people not see that, and how do you address that to keep yourself, what's the word I'm looking for? Positive.
Yeah. No, that's a really good question. And I think he answered it pretty well. But to answer it from my perspective, is people want to see that you're winning, right? And so when you're winning and you have a winning mindset and you're helping people, which I know you do a lot of, Lisa, and thanks for coming in, Brennan. Appreciate you. Um, People want to be a part of that. But what most people don't understand about the attraction component, because I mean, I teach people how to attract people in their personal life, right? It's really not much different than a business type of attraction. But what most people don't realize is it takes a lot of touch points and a lot of time usually, unless they're ready for the ask. Does that make sense? So when you're courting a really handsome man or a beautiful woman, let's say in the dating world, you don't knock them over the head and say, "Oh my goodness, you're so handsome, you're so beautiful, I want to date you." You slowly play into, what do they like? What are things that they find attractive? What are things that I could do to show my generosity? What are things that I could do to compliment them? And it doesn't have to be monetary. So one of the things to answer your question as far as winning an attraction is, compliment them genuinely. Maybe comment on their posts, like their posts, send them a nice DM. Just say, "Hey, hope you're having a great morning. Thinking about you this morning. If you have any real estate questions, happy to help." You offer a helping hand, right? And you continue to do that over a long period of time. And slowly but surely, they're going to see that you're winning more and more and more in your life. And they're going to feel that FOMO mentality, where it's the fear of missing out. But it happens over a longer period of time than most people see. Have you felt that in your business, Brennan? Brennan? Well,
Yeah, it's you never get anything going on the first call. I feel like it's always a long touch point. Can you hear me?
yeah, I can hear you just fine.
Yeah, so it's like planting seeds. Like you plant the seed, you never get the fruit right when you plant the seed. You gotta really water it, follow up with it, touch it, 8, 12, 10 times. The dating world, I'm definitely not the person to be asking, but yeah, definitely the follow up. It's all about the follow up. Like, even if you're trying to date somebody, they may have a current situation going on right now, a boyfriend, girlfriend right now. So maybe you just caught them at the wrong time. Follow up later.
That's right. Yeah, the best detractors in personal life and in business life are those that are able to calibrate. So you never ever want to push someone into doing something they don't want to do, because they'll really look bad on you as far as a negative look and dynamic. But the thing that you want to do is always be constantly inviting, offering value, offering positivity, offering positive, uplifting commentary, which I know you do a lot of, Lisa, and you too, Brennan, because it adds a lot of value to their life, right? It makes them feel good about themselves. And that ties into kind of that winning dynamic, right? When people see you winning, they want to be a part of that winning. I think that's what Brian and I always do, is I pump him up and he pumps me up, and it's a great collective because it creates more value for all of us. Does that make sense to you guys?
Yes.
So the last
You know,
attribute, did you have another question,
Michael,
Lisa?
Michael, I'm sorry, yes. You know what? That totally hits home what you just said about the way that you and Brian lift each other up. I want to add to that, if you don't mind. Not only that, but this right here is very uplifting. You being here for us, and I'm so not being a blowing smoke up anybody's ass person ever, because the fact is that you being here and doing what you do for us is so uplifting. That is what is fantastic. And the my second part of it is this. This is why I'm like, just extending the invitation to your point previously. Extending the invitation, I just get so excited to extend invitations, because do you know what I mean? This feeling of being uplifted by people who are movers and shakers. I mean, I've only had my real estate license for a year and a half, so my pipeline isn't one of these beautiful, like glorious pipelines. It just is what it is, which is fine. It'll be there someday. I'm not worried about that. So that's why I like to bring people along and do the inviting, because this uplifting is more than anywhere else on the earth has to offer. Trust me.
Well, I appreciate that. And it's so true, because what you feed your mind becomes your future. There was a meme going around that I really liked, is people really focus on their physical health, but they don't focus on their mental health. And having winning people around you that you look up to and can learn from, and believe me, I do the same. I mean, not only do I love teaching because it makes me feel good and helping others, but more importantly, I love learning. And we're always constant students. And the more that we can learn from each other, the more success that we're going to have. But I know, Brennan, that you walked in a little late, but today's class is it's called A Mountain of You. And the reason
I was
there's that.
I was catching you on YouTube. I
Oh,
got
you
you. I'm
were?
up to speed.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. So there are 4 concepts that you should write down if you hadn't: is clarity, effectiveness, winning. And then we're going to go into the last one, which is making other people's lives better while accomplishing your own goals. That's the win-win dynamic. You want to be a master attractor, a master marketer. You really need to constantly self-promote in a positive way that uplifts others, and they're going to be more attracted to you along the way. It's going to help them, because what they're going to do, which we touched upon briefly, Lisa, is they're going to cross-promote, right? The power of me doing a shout out with Brennan, or the power of me doing a shout out with you, Lisa, makes all the people following me want to start listening and following you, right? And vice versa. And most people don't realize, but there's so much power in uplifting and building those up around us because of the power of association and how the synapses work in our brain. So that's what I would really highly do, is if you're looking at maybe attracting more agents and growing your rev share and or getting more listings, build those up that you want to attract. Maybe it's a potential client. Build them up. Write a comment about them. Write a post about them. Write a compliment about them. Send them a text message. Same thing with an agent. Say, hey, congratulations on that recent sale. Really proud of you. Keep up the good work, right? There's no quid pro quo there, but rather it's just you being a good person. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense.
Yes.
Yes, I love it.
So going back to that mountain theme, you must undergo immense pressure to become the best version of yourself. This is the hardest thing that most people have a hard time breaking through, is a mountain just doesn't get created overnight, right? It takes tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of years. And as you kind of go through this dynamic, there's going to be a lot of pressures all around you trying to figure out, okay, what do I listen to? What do I adopt? What do I figure out that best suits me? And when I think of that, you have to go back to those 4 things prior. Does it check these 4 boxes? Am I clear in my goal, right? Does this further my goal? Yes or no? Simple as that. Is it effective? Is it allowing me to do what I need to do in the shortest amount of time possible and getting me to my goal, right? Yes or no? Third thing is, am I winning? Am I seeing incremental play in my life? And not just monetarily, but are people becoming more part of my personal life? Am I learning more from my friends? Are people commenting more on my stuff? Do I feel more at ease? Am I helping more people? Are more people reaching out saying, hey, Brandon, Lisa, thank you so much for all that you do? Keep doing it, right? Because that's a win. And then lastly, making sure that other people around you are really feeling good about themselves is extremely important as well. Now, there's 4 failure points. We call them the 4 horsemen of success failure. Okay. The first thing is, a lot of people who are unsuccessful don't love success. How many of you have talked to people or heard of people that all they do is they put down successful or rich people? Have you guys been a part of that or heard of it?
Yes.
Yes.
Right?
Oh,
It doesn't work, right? So what you're doing is it's a magnetic force, right? You're repelling wealth, you're repelling success. What you should be doing is highly complimenting the works that they do and getting close to it. Proximity is power. So whatever you want to become, get as close as possible to those people that you want to emulate through compliments, through solving problems through them, through giving them good pieces of advice and being there when they need you, right? Like, for instance, you guys are constants at this class in EXP world. And believe me, I remember it. You know what I mean? And so when things pop up that I have the ability to promote the both of you, I'm going to do it. You know what I mean? Because you showed up for me, right? The dynamic of reciprocity. The second thing is, you have to, hold on here. My notes are a little. Oh, the second repeller, the second repeller of success, so to speak, is resentment. How many of you have actually walked into a room or been in a conversation where people are resentful of where they are in life?
oh yeah.
Describe that for us briefly, Lisa.
A lot of finger pointing, a lot of victimhood, a lot of going back to your first point as far as repelling success, jealousy, um, just fingers pointing everywhere other than themselves.
Yeah. What about you, Brennan?
Yeah, just to play off Lisa, like they just think that they're powerless and their situation can't change, when in reality your situation could change very quick if you're willing to change. So it's, yeah, just a lot of ego, big ego.
Yeah. And you know, one trick that really helped me, and I'm sure it will help you guys, is whenever someone is a naysayer, whenever someone is putting you down, whenever someone makes you feel less whole or doesn't compliment you, all you have to realize is it's simply a reflection of an insecurity in themselves. It has nothing to do with you 9 times out of 10. So once you realize that, it really doesn't affect you anymore, because I'm sure you guys are points in your life like me in my 20s when someone said something bad to me or someone let me down and I was really hurt by it. Now, it doesn't really affect me as much because I realize that action or those words are more a reflection of them. It doesn't really have anything to do with me. Does that make sense?
Perfect sense. You know what my mom used to say?
What's that?
When people would, like, whatever, and they'd be like, God, I can't believe, blah, blah, blah. She would always say, you know what? They're to be pitied more than censored.
I like that. Yeah. Yeah, and it's almost you're sad for them in a way, because you want them to have the same dynamic of success and winning in your mindset that you have, you know what I mean? And so that's kind of what you want for others. And then the third thing, so the first is not loving success, therefore success doesn't love you, right? The second thing is resentment. The third thing is incongruent expectations. Now, have you guys had issues with attraction? Pop your mic on when it comes to creating more of your downline.
Oh yeah.
And what do you think that is, Brennan? Why do you think that is?
I just know personally myself, like I don't like change. I don't want to redo all my systems. Like change is hard and change is complicated, and you just don't know what you don't know, and there's always a learning curve. So I think people are scared of that, and so they just resist, and they're just like, no, I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. It's working for me right now. I'm currently making a living, making money, so I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing.
What about you, Lisa?
Brennan, 100%, you nailed it. And the only thing that I think, just from the couple people that I would add to that, goes back to like the number one. I think that not seeing what this company has to offer has a lot to do with people within themselves repelling their own success and not feeling that they're worthy of it. And I think too that sometimes people are like, oh, well, that's good for you, but you may like, whoever The Bachelor is or whoever Grant Cardone and all these people, that might be good for you. But you know what? I don't need that kind of thing.
And so that leads us into the third thing, which is incongruent expectations. The way that our minds are triggered as human beings is we want a lot for nothing, right? We want to do very little and receive a lot in return, right? And so what happens is on our listing appointments or possibly in our attraction sphere, they are interested in what we have to say. One of the things Grant Cardone says that I love is just by you presenting the fact that you're a real estate agent or you're in sales or your name or the fact that I'm with eXp Realty, you already took the ball to the 50-yard line, right? You've already ran it halfway down the field. And if and when they say no initially does not mean that they said no forever. It just means that it's a no at this moment in time because there's incongruent expectations of what I'm telling you and what they want to receive at that point in time. So that's what I always found to be interesting was most people, when they say no, it doesn't mean forever. What it means is not the right time. I haven't had all the facts laid out to me in a way that's most palatable to me and how I can digest it for what I need. Does that make sense?
Yes, perfect. Thank you.
So that's that third dynamic is incongruent expectations. And then fourthly, which I'm sure you guys have run into in the attraction component, is putting importance on the unimportant. How many of you two guys have talk to an agent and they bring up the most ridiculous thing that's the most important thing to them? Have you been in that situation?
Yep.
Can you relay that to us briefly? I'll share a story with you.
I think as far as the legacy thing, this is really hitting home with me, so I don't need to beat a dead horse here.
That's all right.
But to know that the closing that you had yesterday could have contributed to your legacy, but you purposely ignored all the other, signs and the videos and the thises and even the things that people have come and listened to on Clubhouse, and you purposely have ignored that. You walked away from your chance of the creation of the legacy and everything that you could have. As far as further, monetary gain. Does that make sense?
Oh, 100%. Brennan, have you had a similar experience?
I'm trying to think of like a scenario where what they wanted was unimportant. Maybe just like they were only concerned about their broker printing them flyers, and that's just like not an expensive thing to think about, really. That's like not that big of a deal. So I just thought that was kind of funny that they were deciding to stick with their broker because he just like prints all their flyers for them, and so that's what they're gonna do. They're gonna stick with them.
Right. Putting importance on the unimportant. I was in a conversation a couple weeks ago, and we were doing all the numbers. And I said, based on your current numbers, just moving over and joining what we're doing, you're going to make another $98,000 a year. And I kid you guys not, the broker or the agent looks at me and he says, but if I move, I lose $10,000 on my commission split. I'm thinking, what? That doesn't even make sense. So you make 98 more and you lose 10, you're still a net 88 grand ahead. You're still going to stick with your same broker? That doesn't even make any logical sense, right? So when you have those dynamics, I always say, you have to understand where they're coming from, right? It's putting importance on the unimportant, and therefore it's not the right time. You got to keep touching them, keep reaching out to them, keep giving them value. And that's one of the things that's really great, I think, about what we do as a collective, is there's so many opportunities to invite people to things, whether it be virtual, in person, etc., that just creates so much value for all these agents and beyond. You know what I mean? So keep inviting. That would be my biggest thing. But we'll go through each of these so you guys have a better understanding of them. So the first is not loving success, therefore success is not loving you, right? Have you ever been in a conversation where someone's kind of complained about their brokerage or talked about how they've been screwed over by a broker that they were with, or how they've been cheated out of a commission or something like that? Have you guys ever had that experience?
Yeah.
And how was that talk?
Well, it's funny because the person with whom I had that conversation happened to have been at the same brokerage as he, and we had the same issues that came up with the commission. And the tricky thing about that is this, Michael and Brendan, excuse me, was that although we had this same thing, and we were like on the same conversation, on the same page for so long, and now all of a sudden, it's like crickets. It's like, now all of a sudden that doesn't matter to you anymore.
Yeah. What about you, Brennan? You had that situation?
About a realtor that got burned on a commission, or got burned by his broker.
Yep.
Yeah, I feel like I have a few. I just can't really think of anything specific off the top of my head.
Well, and again, those are the types of people that create contempt and suspicion, right? So contempt and suspicion are some of the most painful emotions that are caused in business, and you can almost sense them a mile away, right? And so when people hear that, they do not hesitate to kind of retreat and or feel threatened. Does that make sense? And that's why when you hear that from agents, you're like, oh my goodness, this is going to be a really tough attraction call or attraction interaction, right? But here's one thing I would stress as you guys are going out and building your brands. People, in my mind, are inherently good, but they are highly flawed. You know, so all of us, as good as our intentions are, we all have faults within ourselves, right? And so what I'd recommend is simply try to do the best job that you can do for them and give them the benefit of the doubt. Treat them with kindness and respect, but also protect yourself in return. And realize that if someone gives you a negative outburst or a negative response or treats you in a way that you kind of feel like, oh, that was a yucky situation, in time, that will change when they see you winning in your successes and who you're associating with. So what's going to happen is you're going to see this like great divide going back to that kind of mountain commonality aspect, right? And I'm sure you guys see this already in your businesses, where you see like more and more people, the more success that you have, the more you talk about your personal brands and EXP and your model, the more that people are either really attracted to you and want to be in your life, or they just don't want anything to do with it. Have you guys experienced that?
Definitely.
And how have you dealt with that?
So right now, I'm right in the middle of all that. So it was so funny. I don't remember who I was listening to yesterday. I think it was Lisa Copeland. It hit me Yes, it was Lisa Copeland. So you know what she said? She said, think about it. When you're trying to explain to somebody the greatness of what we have and what you want to offer and how you can help them to rise above whatever it is, if they're telling you no or they're walking away, think about it this way. Maybe they're not for you. If somebody doesn't want to move in a positive direction and at least go to the next thing, sit here in the clubhouse and listen to Michael, do these types of things, go to clubhouse and listen to Ari and Brian and all you guys, you know, if they don't want to do that, you don't want them on your team too. So it kind of
That's right.
goes back, you know what I mean? It's the yin yang, right?
That's right. What about you, Brennan?
Yeah, I'm just like starting to lean into that concept more of like the yin and the yang and your haters and the people that love you. And I just kind of I have this theory rolling around in my head and kind of relate it to the whole Donald Trump thing where just like, whether you love him or hate him, he's an excellent marketer and he took over the social media game. And it's like half the people really love him and half the people can't stand him. And his loyal people really dig in and have his back. And then the haters also trash him constantly. And so I think it's just kind of like the yin and the yang concept of life of just like, half the people are going to be for you, half the people are going to be not for you, and you just got to kind of accept it. And I'm starting to accept that and sort through it faster now.
Well, it's so interesting. I was actually on a call the other day, and they were talking about how Grant Cardone rose to prominence. And what was really fascinating was I think it was another prominent guy was talking about Grant, I think, had some TV show several years back, and he got canceled or something. And he was kind of irritated, right? He was pissed off. And he turned over to this other guy. He says, you know what? Screw this. I'm going to make myself a celebrity. And the guy said, well, how are you going to do that, right? How do you even do that? And he said, you just watch. So what he did over the last 8 years, he dumped millions into self-promotion and just pumping out content. I mean, if you watch any of Grant's stuff, he's posting 2 or 3 videos and 2 or 3 photos every single day. Do you guys follow him?
Yeah, he's the best marketer on the planet for sure.
And you know what happened? Over 8 years, the same guy that was in the room with him basically said, and excuse my profanity, but he's like, Grant, like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, I'm getting sick and tired of all these emails, all this video, all these photos that you keep posting. I got to unfollow you. And Grant said, I don't care if you unfollow me. You're not buying anything from me anyway. And so what happened, fast forward 8 years later, he's a billionaire or close to it. He's got over probably 6 million followers combined on all of his platforms. But going off of what you said, Brennan, that's so powerful is he has more haters than probably all of us combined, but he also has more love than all of us combined as well. And so that's a real powerful tool when you guys go out and create your personal brand. Make yourself that celebrity in your space by consistently depositing every single day content, positivity, and interaction with others. I promise you, if Grant can do it, anyone can do it. Because here's a drug addict from New Orleans, you know what I mean? And 40 years later, he totally transformed his life. Why can't we do the same? Is the way I look at it.
Agreed, Michael. Love it. Appreciate that.
But does that resonate with you, Brennan? Because when I would listen to it, I'm like, whoa, that is really amazing. He made himself a celebrity. That's all he did.
Yeah, no, I think I heard him say something in an interview about that, like how his wife Elena wanted to become an actress, and he was just like, I think you're so great already. Forget these Hollywood people. I'm gonna like invest in you and make you a celebrity because I already think you're great. Forget all these Hollywood slimy actors, directors, whatever. We're gonna blow up ourselves. And yeah, I just respect the hustle, but respect the bravery too that it takes to put yourself out there at that level. And yeah, I just appreciate this conversation.
And even at a smaller level, I didn't really take this to heart because probably like some of you, and I know a lot of people I'm watching on, on YouTube Live, we're afraid. We're afraid to put ourselves out there because of our hands getting slapped, or afraid of someone putting us down. And believe me, for 10 years in my 20s, I was one of those people. And then what was funny, I basically said, you know what? Fuck it. I'm just going to go all in and start helping people and promoting myself. And the funniest thing happened, over time, you start making more money, you become more well known, people are putting you down, but similar to Grant's story, there's a lot of people that are complimenting you, saying, hey, Brennan, Lisa, keep doing what you're doing. I really love your posts, I love your videos, I love your content. And it's those select few are the ones that are going to enter your orbit, enter your rev share, enter your client base, and change your whole life. And that's the biggest takeaway. I mean, if you guys can do that, you're going to really start hitting on higher levels for sure. So hopefully that helps.
And that helps immensely. And while you were saying that, the thought occurred to me is that, so say that you never hear from me again, and I go to the couch and I watch soap operas or whatever's on the television, right? And you never hear from me again, and then I become this slouch, right? God bless. But guess what? They're still going to talk shit, and somebody's still going to say shit about me, and somebody's still going to put me down.
Yep.
And so it almost doesn't matter which end of the spectrum you're on, because a hater is a hater is a hater. And the other thing, too, is that at least in a position, for example, Grant Cardone, that since we're already on, speaking of him, is that look at how many people, in spite of it all, he's helped.
Oh, it's amazing. What he did is he paved the way. I know Brian uses this analogy all the time, but everyone tried to run that 4-minute mile, and as soon as one person did it, 20 people the same year did it because they saw it was possible. And what Grant did, which was amazing, is not only did he come from a drug addicted dynamic where he was an addict, he transferred his addiction to success in helping people. And that's what we all can do. We're all addicted to something, whether it's soap operas, real estate, whatever it is. And all we got to do is transfer that excitement and that addiction to helping people. Because the real true, if you want the equation in life to make you more successful financially and in your soul, is you have to continually talk and interact with more people. And now more than ever, it's easier to talk and interact with more people because of technology. Think of social media. I can spend 15 minutes in the morning, touch a button, and on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram, I can hit 150,000 people. We could have never done that, 10, 15, 30 years ago. So now more than ever, it's an unbelievable opportunity for us to go out there and share our gifts. And that's how we blow up our businesses, in my mind. But you guys have any questions before we get to the last part?
No, you're amazing, Michael. I appreciate it. This is awesome. I'm taking notes, writing down all these awesome things that you're saying. So I appreciate you.
Oh, my pleasure. Yeah, thank you guys for showing up. That's half the battle. You took the ball to 50-yard line. Let's get you into the end zone. But going back to that mountain assemblance, so to speak, there are 5 minerals that make a mountain. And that mountain of you, that confidence, that mindset. And it's UABCD. UABCD. So it's an acronym. UABCD. The first is, which we probably talked about in the past, but I'm going to rehash it because it's so important to creating your success tactics, is U stands for understanding and embracing your past so you can better prepare for your future. We are the sum of the total actions that we take in our lives. And without going back into the past and realizing, what are the traumas that we've had, what are the dynamics that shaped us into who we are, we don't really know where we're going to go. Does that make sense to you guys?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so a lot of our childhood trauma, whether we like it or not, transfers into us as adults. And the same insecurities that we learned as children become our insecurities as adults, unless we address them and deal with them. You know what I mean? So that's why we got to understand that. The second thing, A, stands for you have to address your self-esteem. Brennan, when you talk to yourself during the day, is it always in a positive way, or do you sometimes critical about yourself based on moves you made?
Yeah, I'm definitely like my worst critic, but overall, I have a very healthy self-talk, and yeah, there's definitely times where I'm like, bro, you need to get it together, get on your calls or whatever. You've been laying around too much, but overall, it's very, very positive.
Good. What about you, Lisa? How's your self-talk?
It's been on and off the last couple weeks, but I've started the thing in the morning, like as soon as I wake up and I'm like, whoa, I am awake. Where you kind of meet the day.
Yeah.
I've been every morning. I've been, oh, this is a beautiful day. This when my kids were little, I used to tell them this is how I wake them up in the morning. This is a beautiful day. This is going to be the best day ever. This is the day, and then I just keep going on. So I pull myself out by doing things like that.
That's a good point. And contrary to what we think, a lot of our self-esteem advice revolves around that idea and concept of positive self-talk, right? And even though it's really important, don't get me wrong, you have to be your constant cheerleader, and sometimes we're critical of ourselves. But I found that there are two things specifically that when you address your self-esteem really change the trajectory of your marketing and your business. So number one, no one else is really paying that much attention to you. Think of that. Everyone is so consumed in our own lives that we really rarely have the time to effectively look at someone else until they catch our attention to invest in them, right? That's just the truth. So a lot of problems with self-esteem comes from the idea that everyone is paying attention to us and judging our every move, when in reality, that simply just is not true. Most people care about themselves. Very few people care about, oh, what is Lisa doing? What is Brennan doing? They don't care. They have their own problems. So once you get that through your mind where it's like, well, if no one really cares, and most importantly is my self-talk and my self-thought, then boom, let's go out and let's market. You know what I mean? You guys feel that way?
Yes, there was a sports announcer in San Francisco that was one of his big ones. Nobody cares.
It's true. I mean, I hate to say it, it's the truth. We think everyone is, judging us, looking at us, thinking about us, when in reality, we're probably 1/100th of as important to them as we think they are to us. That's the truth. And so when we realize that in the continuity of how we talk to ourselves, it becomes way more easier to promote and be positive and talk to people. The second thing I would write down if you're taking notes is you have to take constant action and continuously celebrate your victories. That is really important. Because the mind, have you guys ever heard of Pavlov theory, Pavlov's dogs? Have you ever heard of that in psychology?
Oh, yeah.
So the concept is, they put dog food out there for dogs and their mouths would salivate and they'd run to the bowl, right? Well, they did it so many times, which we can attribute to success, right? You've had so much success. So after the 10th, 20th, 30th time, they just set the bowl down and the dog was still salivating and hungry and excited just by seeing the bowl, and there was no food in the bowl. So that's almost what I would encourage you guys to think about in your businesses and your marketing and your personal life, is to say, there's the opportunity, there's the bowl. That's what I'm going for. Whether there's food in there or not is irrelevant, because consistently it's that track of winning, success, helping people, playing over and over and over in your mind, regardless of the outcome. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Excellent.
The next thing is how do you build self-confidence, right? Well, a lot of people think confidence is something that we are born with. In reality, confidence is defined as your perceived ability to be good at something, right? and it's your perceived ability to be good at something. So the only way that you can increase your self-confidence, whether that be in pitching, selling homes, jumping into luxury, etc., is by doing something over and over and over and over again. That's why I was asking you, Lisa, at the beginning of the call, what are your daily morning routines, right? And if you do them over and over and over again, you don't think about how hard it is because it's just part of you doing what you do. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yes, perfect sense.
It's like doing a public talk. Like I remember when I was in 5th grade, I was so scared to get in front of the class of 30 people and talk to people. I was shaking in my boots. And then I did it the first time, the second time, the 10th time, the 12th time, the 1,000th time. And now I can stand in front of 1,000 people with 3 bullet points and a quote, and I could put together, a speech. And now that's learned because I don't have the jitters, the butterflies, the scared dynamic of being on camera and being in front of people, but you can assimilate that in every aspect of your life, right? The more you do something, the more confident you are at doing that thing. And it just creates a flywheel effect for your guys' marketing and success. And then I'll talk about this because I think this ties into getting listings and attraction, is you have to calibrate by taking away what's not working and adding to what is. Like, Brennan, have you ever been in a situation where you're talking to someone about their listing or pitching them on EXP and you're like, something in my pitch just isn't quite working?
Yeah, I've felt that before.
And how did you calibrate? How did you shift it?
Asking them questions.
What about you, Lisa? Have you been in that situation?
I'm so sorry. I was taking notes.
Oh, I just said, have you ever been in a pitching situation where you said something and miscalibrated it and you're like, ooh, I should have said that differently. How do I transition in what I'm saying to the person I'm talking to?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And that's the thing to realize is we're not all perfect. We never will be. Life is just a continuous series of experiments and tests, right? So instead of trying to be perfect, just embrace the dynamic that we're constantly moving forward with massive action, full of things that we do wrong, but slightly getting better and learning as time progresses. And that's the thing, right? Attraction is not an overnight thing. Attraction is a lifelong pursuit that is going to make you guys millions on top of millions of dollars and get people in your orbit, because it's not something you do once or twice. You pick up the phone, call, and you hang up. It's something that you do in every fiber of your body, every single minute you're alive. You know what I mean? And the last thing I would say, which is the D on the UABCD, so we'll go through. U, again, was understanding your past so you can better plan for your future. A is addressing your self-esteem. B is build self-confidence with practice. C is calibrating, taking away what doesn't work and adding to what does. And D, which is probably the most important thing, as we've talked about in probably 7 sessions before this, is you guys have to develop a positive and engaging story. So you have immense control over the way other people perceive you. And it's entirely up to you to shape your impression in a way that's favorable to you and your brand and your business. Do you guys know that?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, you have to craft a persona that's really positive and engaging at all times. And it's not easy to do, but what's exciting about it is you're racking up these small wins. You start becoming more generous. You start becoming more kind. You start becoming more complimentary. And where we know our weaknesses are is when we go back into judging others or putting other people down. I'm guilty. I've done it. I still do it sometimes. And every time I do it, I'm like, Mike, cut that out. It's not healthy. Instead of making judgments, it's about complimenting, bringing people up, adding value. And when you're doing that, you're going to constantly be winning, right? The other thing I would say is the reason positivity and developing your engaging story is so important is that everyone that we talk to has problems in their life. No one is immune, no matter how much money you have, right? And so you want to make sure that when they're interacting with you, you're that ray of light, right? You're that ray of sunshine. You're that uplifting mechanism in their life where they go, wow, I talked to Brennan the other day. That guy's a really good guy. Or I talked to Lisa. I really like that gal. She really has a positive outlook, right? That's your calling card. That's how they're going to remember you. And that is why they're going to want to join your businesses and be a part of your machine, so to speak. So focus on being that ray of sunshine. It's a lot easier to do after implementing a lot of the mindset training that we've gone over the past 8 weeks. And I would highly recommend that if you guys have questions or notes, review and relook at some of those videos that we've done, because they're all on YouTube right now. And then if you have specific questions, DM me on Facebook or Instagram. But before we conclude, do you guys have any questions or anything that I can help you with before we take off in a couple of minutes?
I don't have a question off the top of my head right now, Michael, but I appreciate this info, writing it all down.
Hey, my pleasure. I'll tell you guys, you guys are showing up, and that's half the battle. Do not give up. And I always tell everyone I interact with, always spend time with people that are equal or better than you. And equal or more, equal or more, equal or more. Those are 2 words I want you to remember. And when I mean equal or more, I'm not just talking about monetarily. I'm talking about energy, positivity, kindness, the ability to attract, events, all of those things, right? Think about that. If anyone is not equal or more than you of where you want to go, you got to eradicate them from your life, because they're not. If you're not building your empire with them, you're destroying it from within. You know what I mean?
Very true. Very, very true.
Anything I can help you with, Lisa, before we take off?
Just thank you so much. My notes are like are off the page. Just thank you so much, Michael. This is again just a blessing to be here, and not to get religious and squishy, but there you go. It really
well, you
is
guys,
a blessing.
you guys are blessings, because it doesn't work if you guys don't show up. And so I appreciate the both of you for showing up. And luckily we have a lot of people that are on, Instagram, or not Instagram, YouTube Live, that are watching it, which is fantastic. And we're getting a lot of traction. I mean, if you look on YouTube, which is really interesting, a lot of these videos have 1,000+ views. And I think the reason being, which I'm happy to see, is a lot of people are going back and rewatching this content. And I'll tell you, the reason I teach it is because it really helps change your life over the long term. And the reason I know is it helped change mine. Not just monetarily, which I know a lot of us are focused on, but it's these life skills that are really going to propel us forward. And another thing before we go that I think is really important, not all of life is about money. You talked about the 3 things that were important to you earlier on, Lisa, which were, your personal life, your business life, and your family life. But the things I would say is social currency is probably the most valuable currency that you have on this planet. That's what Grant has in abundance. That's what Brian has in abundance. That's what Glenn has in abundance. That's what a lot of people that we look up to and emulate have, is they don't necessarily have a ton of money. Most of them do. But a lot of them have the ability to influence others and help people. That's social currency. So when you look at building up your brand, followership, commentary, kindness, legacy over currency. Yeah, it's a good point, Vivian. I'm reading some of the comments, on YouTube Live. But there is that dynamic. If we don't want to leave this planet just as real estate agents, we want to leave this planet having helped people, right? And maybe before we go to the next week, one of the homework assignments, if you guys are brave enough to do, is I always tell clients, write your obituary. And as weird and as morbid as that sounds, what's really good about it is if you know what the end looks like, the whole steps of your life is just taking the steps to get to where you want to end up. So it's kind of a reverse osmosis, so to speak, where you're starting to learn the steps I need to take to get to my end result. So a lot of my clients do that as a tactic, where if you want other people to know you in a certain way, at least define that. So on your dying breath, you have no regrets and you have the legacy that you want to leave with other people. So hopefully that helps, guys.
Yeah, it helps.
It
Let
really
people on social
does.
currency.
Yeah, social currency. Don't be afraid. Get out there. If Grant can do it, we can do it. And we could do it bigger because we're a lot younger, a lot of us. So that's good. And even if we're not, there's no time to act like the present is the way I look at it.
For sure. Thank you so much, Michael. Thank you.
Hey, my
again.
pleasure. You guys have a great week, and we'll see you next Wednesday, okay?
See you then.
All right. Take care.
Forward
Bye-bye.
to it, Michael. Thank you.